you.
I'm gonna set this next movie up because Dave, our co-host here, is going to be our resident expert on Odd Thomas. So, if you were here at the beginning of the podcast, which would have taken you to now, I hope you didn't skip ahead. But if you did, welcome to the podcast. We're Jeff, Dave, and John. So we're gonna be talking about Odd Thomas, which was a movie directed and the screenplay written by Stephen Sommers, and it stars Anton Yelchin, who is he is resting in peace. We don't have to hope he rests in peace. He's resting in peace. I saw Charlie Bartlett the year it came out, and I was like, holy shit, who is this kid? And in the next 10 years, he did not disappoint. His end came too soon.
Absolutely.
Fuck yeah, Anton Yelchin. And then Willem Dafoe in a nice supporting role. This is based on a series of novels by Dean Koontz. Dave will talk all about that. Long story short, in California, in a desert town, a short order cook, he's not really a cook in the movie very long, but he is a cook. But he basically is clairvoyant with abilities, and he can sort of see... This is the tagline for the movie. Or it's actually the quote that they led with in the trailer. I see dead people, but then, by God, I do something about it. So it's basically like if the kid from Sixth Sense, Haley Joel Osment, grew up to become a sleuth detective.
Yeah, it's if Haley Joel knew kung fu, basically. Yeah.
If Haley Joel knew kung fu and had an in with the local detectives, in this case, Willem Dafoe, that's basically what this is about. He can see victims. They don't talk to him, but he sees that something happened to them, and they lead him to the killer, and he tries to piece it together of what the crime was, or at least who the killer was, and then he tells Willem Dafoe, who's the only person who believes him, and Willem Dafoe figures out how to make the crime, a viable court case. And it's very, very interesting. It's got action. It's got your detective stuff.
I kind of call it modern.
Mystery.
I reference it as modern noir. Because, you've got the voiceover, you've got the punchy back and forth dialogue, the saxophone's replaced by a driving guitar, there's a mystery to be solved, and the whole thing happens in full color.
You're right. Yeah. They don't go for the noir as much as something like Rian Johnson's Brick, but I see where you're coming from.
I'm talking about modern noir,
do...
not someone trying to imitate noir, not like Ryan Dream Smasher Johnson.
Well, you know what? It kind of comes across more like, what is that movie where the zombie the human falls in love with the zombie? What is that movie called?
I love you. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That's closer to the tone I feel in this one. But anyway, so that's what the movie's about.
That's the sound of John searching.
He knows it actually
I'm gonna find it, you guys.
Hold on, but wait, I want to make sure everybody's set up on what this movie's about. It's about how Anton Yelchin is fucking awesome.
Warm Bodies.
Yes. Yeah. With Nicholas Hoult. Yeah. So anyway, so Anton Yelchin, in this particular, the plot, I guess, now that you know what he is, his clairvoyance, he's trying to figure out, what's going on. He can tell that something big is going to happen, and it's going to happen in a public place because he's starting to see entities that only people who see dead people can see. And he knows that something is happening. And so he can't tick off to a crime that's already happened, and it complicates things. So he's trying to figure out what's going to happen. What is the imminent threat that is going to lead to mass death in order to prevent it? And I think it's an interesting hook. It's a good hook. I'm going to reserve any other thoughts or comments before Dave speaks, since he is the resident expert.
Dave, I want to hear you. Go off, dude. You like it the most.
This is one of my guilty pleasures. I've seen this movie so many times. I think I've seen Scott Pilgrim more because that's my number one favorite. But this one is definitely up there. They set this up wonderfully. In the first 15 minutes, he avenges a wrong. You see that this happens to him often, so it affects his life. You meet his love, you hear what he wants from life, and straight away you're shown what threatens all of it. This is the first 15 minutes. They haven't eased you in. They've gone, here's the world set up, here's the story, done. We're moving on. And it just goes and it flows, and he's now involved in solving the mystery that is what's going to happen to these people that I've seen in this vision that I had.
Yeah, basically. What was it like reading the books? Does it match the narrative you read?
I was curious how they read.
This is one of the few cases where the movie, in my opinion, surpasses the book. They did eliminate a couple of characters from the book. They made a few subtle changes and really made it punch. There's just an interesting thing which they reference in the movie subtly, but he has the ghost of Elvis following him around.
It's a character in the movie, or like a character who's not in the movie?
No, the character's not in the movie. They have a still of Elvis, like a picture of Elvis in his room.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, where he goes, "Morning, Elvis," and walks off. Yeah, and that's it. And then after that, Frank Sinatra follows him around for future books. So he has these ghosts.
Is it real kind of tongue in cheek? Is it kind of snarky the way it reads as well? The way they presented it?
Oh yeah, the dialogue was definitely preserved. Like this, almost every line that he references is in the book. There's a couple of omissions for obvious reasons. There's a whole companion character they omitted mostly, but yeah, all the snappy dialogue. The movie changed a lot of the stuff between him and Stormy, so that it happens on the phone directly. But a lot of the scenario translates over. But I feel like the movie really made it, like it took the elements it wanted and made this just a really punchy, tight film.
It is very punchy. Tight film, I will say.
I'll give you punchy and I'll give you tight. I didn't really like this movie. I didn't dislike it. I know. No, but I wasn't passionate about disliking it though. I had fun time watching it. It was tight. I enjoyed myself. It was fun to follow along. But I'm so glad that you said that comment about the modern noir, because I've been trying to understand if there was something I thought was missing, or if I would have tweaked something. I think you nailed it, dude. Noir, modern or not, you have a world of doubt, right? Where you can't trust everyone that you're seeing. And the only reason noir succeeds, when it succeeds, is because your protagonist presents that to you as well, that you can't quite figure them out. But eventually, if the story is done correctly, you start to empathize with how they doubt themselves. And I think what frustrated me about this movie was that he was rock solid the entire time. I never, ever, ever got totally on board with him. And I think it's because he was 100% snarky and sure of himself in every single moment. So I was never nervous for him. Even when the movie was telling me, you should be nervous about this because this is a big showdown. I knew it was a big showdown. I knew what scene I was in, but my personal stakes as an audience member didn't get raised at all because I wasn't worried for him. Unlike, since you referenced it, Scott Pilgrim's fucking genius, because Edgar Wright sneaks an emotional attachment that you have for Michael Cera's character in. So you think you're just following along on that fun video game ride, and then it turns into something where you're actually caring about him getting with the girl and defeating the guy. Whereas Odd Thomas, I felt like, I don't know. I'm also just going to say it, you guys. I don't want to pick on her, but that girl was awful. Ashley Summers, I don't know if that's his daughter. Jeff, back me up here, dude. She was really terrible. Anton Yelchin is so good.
Anton Yelchin's great, and Dave, I have to kind of side with John. I don't dislike it as much as John did, but all of the characters were two-dimensional.
I really didn't dislike it. I didn't hate this movie at all. I had a fine time. It has a 6.8 rating on IMDb. I'd probably give it a 6. I had a fine time watching it. I would watch the sequel, but I was trying to figure out why it didn't land like really
the
well.
Characters are all two-dimensional, and there's no subplot that runs perpendicular to the plot. So the plot is very straightforward, and there are no subplots that get introduced that divert the plot.
Jeff, are you hearing these buzzes? Are you hearing
No, you're not.
Buzzes?
We have our Zoom settings are fucked up because we can talk over each other, and that's why we can't hear the buzz when somebody's talking, dude. We gotta
sorry.
We buzzed you,
but what I would say to everybody is I would love for everybody to give it a watch, because I do think it is worth it, especially for the two main performances between them. Stormy is I thought about this while I was writing, and John, I do appreciate where you're coming from, because it is the actor's job to make the writing as brilliant as possible. That is the job of the actor.
It's literally your job.
They teach you that at BFAs. If you have a BFA and you've never been told this, you wasted your goddamn money, because your job is to make the writer the most brilliant person in the world, and the director, I suppose, too. And the writing for this character is very two-dimensional. It's very much... Okay. You know, right. I'm glad I had the buzz to take a step back, because they try to make her not two-dimensional by giving her two-dimensional tropes. That's what I would say to that. So they try to make it seem like she's not just moping around the guy, but she doesn't have her own individual point of view. So even though she's not the girl that's just moping, that's just saying like, Like she believes the clairvoyant. She trusts that he has an ability, and she's kind of badass in how she tells him, like, dude, this is the fucking way it is. You're gonna do this. You're gonna get some courage. You're gonna get some balls.
I'm telling you,
but
you guys.
But she doesn't have her own perspective, and I do think that holds it back a little bit. I'm not saying it would be more interesting if she was evil or violent or anything, but ultimately it's just who is the bad guy, and most of the bad guys, even when we figure out who they are, it's not Agatha Christie, like, oh, it's kind of like, oh, that guy we saw once. You know what I mean? I do wish. So it's funny that it's tight because I love tight movies. I love tight movies, but I, in a weird way, even though I love that it just got right to it, I wish they had taken more time to introduce more characters. So that way it could have been more whodunit-esque.
I'm kind of starting to wonder, am I taking extra from this because I read the books since? But like when I first saw this, I didn't read the books.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. But that's why I was asking you about the books because, you know, to Jeff's point, like introducing side plots, and we said that recently about Cable Guy, like things to mess up your characters. Again, I'm going to reference Michael Cera, and not just as an actor, but the way they use him in those Edgar Wright movies, which have a very similar tone. So I'm glad you said you referenced that. You can see when an obstacle is introduced to a character, it doesn't land if the performance doesn't take on the obstacle as an impediment. So we had obstacles introduced to each of these characters. I don't think as actors they took them on, and sometimes they weren't introduced at all. Like, I'm trying to think of a specific moment. When he was first in the guy's house and he opens the gate to hell, and you're like, oh, you know, that was pretty cool. And then right after that, he calls Stormy, or she calls him, and they're on the phone together. And she's like, what are you doing? And he tells her what happened. And then she says, what are you doing now? And he says, I'm going back. And because there's no fear in him, and there's nothing in his way, I kind of felt like I was waiting for something to interrupt the assurance that everyone had, all the characters in the movies, the director. I wanted something to actually get in the way emotionally, and maybe that's not the point of this movie. Maybe you're just supposed to sit back and have fun. But I would still argue that something like Scott Pilgrim and Hot Fuzz work because they do introduce, even with the tongue really pointing out the cheek in their mouth, even though it has that tone, those work better because they still enable them just enough for them to wink at us and say, we're taking this just serious enough so that you can enjoy yourself. I feel like this one wanted us to be along for the ride the entire time, but it never gave me anything other than the story moving forward. Do you disagree with that completely?
But don't you think that Anton did his best to try to make up for that? It's almost like he recognized that.
I don't disagree with that,
for sure.
But I definitely took something different.
Okay,
tell me, dude. Yeah,
tell us more, because I want people to watch this movie because
I did not hate this movie, dude. I did not hate it at all.
It's not a bad film. It's definitely a fun watch. It's a great date night film. It has a twist.
Yeah, I would watch the sequel. If he actually goes to Vegas, I'm sure I would sit down at some point and smoke a big one and watch that damn thing. Because I feel like that would be a fun time.
I haven't even got to the book where he goes to Vegas yet. So that was a really misdirected lead in. So like there's like 6 books, I think, between him and going to Vegas. So they skipped ahead really, really badly.
I will say, I'll give you this. Actually, I want to ask that. I don't want to tell you how I felt about it. What did you think? Dave, try to remember back to the first time you watched it before you read the book, and Jeff, right now, what did you think of the little coda at the end with the way they kind of twist it with her? Spoiler alert, if you're going to watch out, Thomas, there's a weird thing at the end, so I don't want to discuss super in detail, but something happens to him and his girl, and there's a weird little twist.
Really?
What's up?
Nothing.
And why didn't it affect you at all?
Because what? What if the twist didn't happen, what's in it for me? Like, what am I missing out on by the twist happening? So
I think that's kind of what I was getting at, is that when you
didn't empathize with the character at all.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I
it was
empathized with him, but he did such a good job at showing me what it was like letting her go that I was like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen to him. Didn't mind missing her.
Okay.
And
But
that's
I also
not
kind of felt like
and that's not on her. I think that's on the writers for not giving her own point of view that was outside of him. Her entire point of view was focused around him, and it was cleverly done in a way that wanted to be
That's the
feminist but wasn't
that is the
entirely
one
feminist.
point where the movie falls down where the book didn't, because she definitely has her own character in the book.
And Jeff, I love that you said
this
that,
movie,
dude. You made a good
You're
Do you
right.
know
point.
what I'm talking about, though? Do you know where I'm coming from, Dave?
Yeah, no, that is. You're right. That is where the
Who
movie
is she
falls
without
down
him?
in
What does she do on Tuesday if she doesn't see him?
Yes.
Like,
I love
no,
that,
you're
dude.
right.
You made a good point that you said it earlier that they wrote her as though they wanted her to come off as this strong, independent, witty female, and yet her entire world was seen through his eyes. So we never really had a real chance. I also felt
Right.
like, again, I was in kind of two different movies. I'm not sure if it was just the performances or the writing or everything. Anton was giving it 110% at the end when he was so upset. And I just didn't believe that anyone else was in the same movie. Even Willem Dafoe, I felt like he was just kind of standing there. And Anton Yelchin was giving you everything he had. He was giving you all of his training in that last little bit. So that was one of those times where I felt like the idea was a good idea. Oh my God, we're going to have this
I do
twist.
too.
Whether or not Dean wrote it, it doesn't matter. It's a good twist at the
No,
end.
he did.
It
That
got
was
me
in the
by
book.
surprise. It's from the book, so that's a good idea. But whenever you're playing ideas,
It's not often
and
you
you
hear me credit
you
Dean
don't bring them
Koontz.
to fruition. Yeah, sure. But you don't bring them to fruition with character development. It doesn't matter because it's just going to remain an idea. If you're not along for the ride, you're not going to care, and it's just going to seem cheap. And honestly, by the time I finished it, it felt kind of cheap to me. I felt like they were kind of taking a cheap shot. It was like,
I no, see, I don't feel like that. I feel like they just swung and missed. I feel like I knew what they wanted and they just didn't get there in an hour and a half. They wanted to keep the movie tight and they just didn't get there in time. It had a little bit of a Stranger Things season 3 going on for me with them all, especially, but all this stuff going on and so much, and these are the people that need to solve this problem that's way above them. So let's give us a fix. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's do that. Let's get on with it. And hopefully there's an emotional impact. And you know what? Maybe it will land for people. So again, I'm curious for people to follow because the actors are working their ass off. They really are. But I do think the writers gave some characters short shrift. And I think that, it comes into play a little bit. But I'm curious because it's for free. Everybody just watch it. It's an hour and a half. Just give it a watch.
So, like in hindsight,
Are they making a sequel?
No, they can't. Like,
Yeah, they- I
they,
mean, what are they gonna-
I mean, they
yeah, they might
cast
as well
they
reboot
cast
it.
Anton,
Jesus.
so
I mean,
yeah, he's done.
They could
Like,
recast him.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, they could, but I don't know if it'd work because, like, even when I was reading the books, I'm picturing Anton. Like, he nailed that character
He's
so
really good in
much.
He really
it
did
got in my
everything
head.
right. He did.
He's really, really good in it.
So yeah, like credits.
Except, wait, did he open the door to hell? Because I actually didn't get that he opened it. I thought it was already opened already.
It was already open,
and
yeah.
that's me too. Yeah, exactly. Now to John's point, I wish he had opened it and done a Stranger Things season 1. There's a lot of Stranger Things going on. Do it and make 11 go, oh no, I did this. And it's like, yeah, but you're also the
Yeah,
only
but
one that can solve
remember
it,
in
so let's
Stranger
move on.
Things, well, let's go there. In Stranger Things season 1, as soon as they realized it was open, everyone was fucking terrified, including 11. They were all broken
He
by
was,
the
though.
idea
Anton was. Anton did the work for of 1,000 men for this, but nobody else.
he wasn't
You're right,
scared
you're
though.
right.
He was like, "I'm going back. I'm going to go look at it. I want to go look at it." I was like, "I don't know, dude. I don't know." It just
Anyway.
didn't.
Yeah, I mean
I still think it was
that
fun.
hails back to the original Dean Koontz interpretation of the character. He's never phased, really. He always has.
Does that work? So
He always has a
so is that a rule?
No, it's kind of like it's a failing in writing for Dean Koontz.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm asking. Like in terms of storytelling, I don't know if that rule doesn't.
Yeah, that's
Hold
something
up.
that's something that maybe they shouldn't have adapted. He's like cocksure,
element.
like he's always certain there's going to be a positive outcome. I mean, sometimes Anton threw that in that like he didn't know whether it was going to succeed, but
Right.
yeah, I can tell you in the books and the future books, there's always
Dude,
that.
I'm so glad you said that because sometimes we all are in the film acting world, so we read screenplays quite a bit in our lives, and I talk to actors all the time about this, and I know I feel this. I struggle with this enormously. I struggle with it with novels a little bit sometimes too, but I definitely struggle with it with screenplays. It's really hard to imagine and to give yourself permission to what it would feel like to elevate it off the page. It's so stark. The descriptions are usually so slim, and the character is just these lines on a page, and then you have to turn it into something much, much more than that. You have to transcend that. And I felt like this, they played this how it would read the first time you read the screenplay. and that's why I feel like it just lived at that place that it was not as good as it could have been, because I think they were afraid to go beyond the idea of it. Some place that Edgar Wright would have gone with it.
Anton took it, but nobody else
Anton
did.
took it. Yeah, Anton
you're fine.
they fucking took it.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy's fucking really, really, really good. Fuck you, car company. What's the car company?
Do not mention the car company. We're not getting sued twice in one episode.
Nah, fuck that car company. That's bullshit, dude. Terrible, tragic
It
situation.
was absolutely tragic. Look it up online. We're not going to mention that, but yeah.
He's so good in
Yeah.
this. He's crying
but
so
maybe
hard at the end of this movie.
waste.
Oh my god, he was so good. Yeah. You know what that reminds me of? I've seen movies, Broadway shows that do this, where like a character is pregnant, and some people go, and then some other times they're like, "I'm pregnant," and people are like, "Oh, okay, cool, they're pregnant," and like they don't have an emotional. It's just basically like, "What's next now that they're pregnant?" You know what I mean? There's no like emotional whatever. And I did take that of the ending, but Anton played it as if it was part one, and so again, the performances are great, and the genre we know works.
I mean, the other
Everybody
thing
loves-
as well, the film ran out of budget halfway through, so they almost didn't finish it.
Yeah, I heard about
so
that.
shit going
Like,
Did they
on.
film in Santa Fe?
I'm willing to. Albuquerque, I think it was.
It looked like New Mexico for sure. Yeah, Albuquerque.
But there was. I'm willing to bet there was no marketing budget for this.
I didn't even hear
They
about.
did
I
a
had never
limited
even heard of
release
it.
Why
starting
nobody knew about it.
abroad.
Yeah.
So if you actually go online, this is 2013. It actually says on Hulu or on Amazon that it came out in 2014, because the 2013 release started in Europe, and then they had issues with their marketers. They had like crazy legal disputes, so it like totally fucked the entire release of this movie up, which
Yeah,
is probably
because
why you never heard of
marketers
it.
don't
Yeah,
like it
which I
if you
feel
don't
bad
give
for.
them $1 million.
Yeah.
Usually
This
they
is a
just
fun
take the
movie.
fucking
It's
back
worth
end and
watching.
market
It's on
it.
Prime
Video.
Just
Sorry,
take
that's
your
me.
take
That's
your
just
cut,
me.
take your cut, take your shares, market the movie, and then go.
It's on
Like,
Prime Video, right? Let's give it a watch.
is.
This one's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
I'll tell you
It's a
what, you
fun
guys.
genre and
The
it's
whole time
short.
I was
Give it a
watching
shot.
this, I was thinking series. How is this not a series?
Yeah.
They could recast this series
They
and really
absolutely
go to town.
could.
I
It
feel
felt
that
like
comes
a
up
pilot
once an
episode to
now.
me.
This should be a series. Yeah, but I'm with you. This should have been a series. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they could still do it if they want to. I would watch that.
Yeah, I mean, given the amount of books he wrote, they probably could.
Yeah,
I mean,
and you know what? The second one
No
probably
brainer.
would have taken our note about the supporting characters and gone with it. And this could be like one of those movies
Dude,
that's
Jeff, what's
4
the
or
kid
5
from?
series where
What's the kid from Manchester by the Sea? He's my Odd Thomas.
Lucas Hedges.
Lucas Hedges is Odd Thomas. Let's do it. Let's rock and roll. I'd be totally down
and you
for
know
that.
what? Lucas Hedges is watching Timothy Chalamet have a moment, and he was like, "Wait, I was nominated for an Oscar too. Where's my money? Let's go."
He's
I
great,
don't think he
dude.
got any money from Boy Erased. I don't think Boy Erased did it. So like, let's give
He's so
Lucas
good.
Hedges
Lucas
his big
Hedges-
fucking
All right,
seven-figure deal.
we've
Let's
hit
go.
we've hit the end of Odd Thomas, I think.